my question is, who do you think would be the next person there? Because they haven't found anybody that isn't just a warm body that isn't going to be him. I mean, he's as far right as you can go, as again, we're going to get into with the whole, I mean, just simply the trying to overturn the election. Like, who could possibly take that spot? And do they just, or do they not even know? They just don't want to govern. Like, that's my personal theory.
They don't want to pass any legislation until Donald Trump is elected. So
right. They've as much said so, actually.
So if anybody passes even a budget, like a reconciliation, kicking the can down the road, if anyone passes a farm bill, if anyone like adds changes to the IRA, if like anything, Ukraine and Israel funding bill, like we just saw that immigration was a deal that was it was a right wing. It was the most right wing immigration deal in this country in 60 to 70 years. And it had the votes to pass, and Joe Biden was going to sign it. And it got scuttled by Donald Trump saying, I don't want him to have the win.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. Like the Trump MAGA Republicans in the Republican Party, which make up the vast majority of the Republican Party at this point, have decided that obstructionism is the only way to go. Now, before Trump came along, this has been a Republican problem. Like, this was a problem with the Tea Party before it, with the Gingrich wing, with Reagan's election. Like, the idea of the government, we're not having debates anymore about the government not working in a specific way, or like changing how we govern, how we implement policy. Instead, we're arguing whether or not the government itself, the very entities that it has become, are worthy of existence or even functioning. And like we could pass a bill today to get rid of the debt ceiling, to just say, if we don't pass a debt ceiling, it automatically goes back to the previous year's budget and like credit limit. And we could, like, no other country has this problem, but we continue it because it's a way to like garner political headlines and like hold leaders' feet to the fire from the base of both parties in a fight that is unnecessary. Well, it has gotten to the point now that obstruction has become such a tenet of the GOP, especially when Trump's not in power, that no one who's doing even the base level of governing, just funding the agencies that exist, like the FAA, the EPA, the Department of Education, like the Department of Homeland Security, the IRS, like the highway, like the National Park System, like the National Institute of Health, like all these things, the fucking Smithsonian museums. Like, they don't even want to pass a budget to keep these things running. The fucking U.S. Postal Service, they don't even want to cast a budget to keep these things running because it will be a win for Joe Biden. And because of that, like, when you get in the actual halls of power and you realize, like, oh, I have to pass something. Like, I have to pass something because otherwise all our donors will stop funding us. Like, straight up. If I don't pass a budget, if I have the U.S. credit rating crash, if I make it where people, like, if I crash unemployment by essentially temporarily firing all these government workers while we don't have a budget, if I stop the growing economy, if I stop corporate profits, then they are going to not fund us in the next election. So I actually do have to pass this budget. But the ideological right-wing base is going to say, don't pass anything.
They're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us.